forward to a couple of productive days. John is
not the password.
John is getting the password so you can get the slides up. While he's doing that, so the next panel, what we have are a series of speakers who are going to cover some problems where data can help. So I think everyone in this room knows that there are a lot of problems out there that data is not being used as well as it could be to solve those problems, and these are going to be some good examples. So, thank you.
Oh.
No.
So John Monahan, he works for the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, and so he's going to talk about something that we all like, consumable goods. Jessica?
You know what? Gel, we're all right.
Oh, we're good.
All right, technology conference, right? All right, so hi everybody, my name is John Monahan. I am not a data scientist, I work for dairy farmers. So hopefully you can excuse some of this. So when I'm not taking selfies with cows or, maybe fake album covers, I'm working for a farmer-funded nonprofit to help advance social responsibility and sustainability within the industry. So you might know us for things like Got Milk, Beyonce ads, which I kind of still wish we did. But now we are working on a campaign called Undeniably Dairy. So we're working with and through our industry to help to advance sustainability and social responsibility within all of our companies across the whole supply chain. So we work with people from crop production through to retail and restaurant, including a number of farmers, cooperatives, processors, and including stakeholders in governments and NGOs. So I've been thinking a lot about the future of food and what that means. We have so many people we need to feed going into the future, not just because there's going to be a lot of people, but also because a lot of them are entering the middle class. And I think when you hear future of food, you hear a lot about like insect proteins and growing things in the lab, but realistically, we're going to need the help of all the people in this room to make sure that we have enough food for everyone to eat. So this kind of really came to life for me in two different places. One was working on a project with the EPA on nutrient recovery, and the other was at South by Southwest. And on this nutrient recovery project, we were trying to figure out how can we best manage manure, what products can we turn it into, and these are all real examples, so using it for electric power, for power trucks, to have in-home lawn and garden sections. And we had a ton of support. We had our event at the White House, but we couldn't get any attention for it. It wasn't really, sexy enough to get the support of, funding and, media that we had wanted. Flash forward to, a week later was South by Southwest, and we had this great panel on food waste reduction. And so, we had this great panel of, women representing people across the supply chain, we were nerding out in our room about the food waste recovery hierarchy and how we can really solve this important problem. But down the ballroom, in the bigger room, was a panel of people just talking about how can we deliver food more quickly to people. And that had a bigger audience. And so, we went to the expo hall, and it was the Future of Food Showcase. So the things that you see there were, 3D printed pizzas. It was selfies with Grumpy Cat, which I did get. And these luxury devices that are for, really rich people. And to me, that's not the future of food. The future of food is making sure that we have enough food to actually feed the planet. And so I went home and was doing some research. My old punching bag was Juicero, and if you are familiar with it, it's this, $700 juicing device. The company has gone bankrupt a couple weeks ago. So my new punching now is Bodega. You heard about that. This isn't the future of food to me. This is not servicing the real challenges that we have. So when I think about, technology on farmers have always used technology. When you went from horses to tractors and anything, the entire history of farming. Technology is not something to be afraid of on farm, and it's something that all of us should be hoping we can continue to use to get more sustainable outcomes. And so we were talking about it a little bit, but in tractors now, they're collecting so much data, they're applying nutrients precisely. There's new sensors in the field that are gathering weather data and all sorts of other information, a ton of data that could potentially be mined by people like yourself. And same with drones and aerial imaging. On the right is, whether it's from satellite data, drone data, overhead flight data. On the left here is a Yamaha device that is, can do precision applications of pesticides or other chemistry. Here are some examples of, we're doing facial recognition of cows. And using machine learning, this is a Canadian company called Campus, to understand how much is she eating and drinking, and is she healthy, how is she moving around. This is Agrobot. It's a Spanish company that's using machine learning to understand how to do robotic harvesting of strawberries. We've got robotics, so that the cow can choose when she wants to come in to be milked. It's collecting so much data. Here's a little Roomba robot that's helping to push up the feed. There's advances in healthcare technologies on farms, so it's pretty much Fitbits for cows and helping us to know more about her health and make sure she's healthy and producing a lot of milk for us. So all of this, my call to action to you is that we have a lot of data that's coming on farm, and technology is something that our farmers welcome. And I think that the purpose of this session was to give you some challenges, and so my challenge to you is that if you want to feed the planet, help us use our data to accelerate innovation in agriculture. Thanks.
Next we have Kyle Lott from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And Rachel.
All right, everyone. So thanks for having us first. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kyle Ott, and this is my colleague Rachel Teicher, and we are from the National Network for Safe Communities, which is an action research center housed at John Jay College, which is a CUNY college of the city of New York. So wow, okay, I got through that. So I'll start off by saying that my boss, David Kennedy, always likes to say that criminologists are a really cranky bunch. And we come really cranky today. Specifically, we come with a data gripe. And it's our data gripe that we want to hopefully make your data gripe. So I'm not a data scientist, I'm a data analyst. Rachel is our director of our intimate partner violence intervention.
Not a data scientist.
Yeah, exactly. We'll also try and do really well at this karaoke with this microphone, so bear with us. we could spend hours explaining what intimate partner violence is and what our intimate partner violence intervention is. So we are going to try and fly through it. And I'll start because I'll forget, is we'll be workshopping this at the scoping workshop at 2:30, I believe. So if you like our smiles and have any interest in intimate partner violence and how data science can help potentially flesh that out and understand it in a deeper way, come by later.
So at the National Network, we focus on a number of different serious criminal justice public safety issues. Our strategies are designed to not increase incarceration, not tear apart communities, but increase public safety, bring communities together, keep people safe, alive, and out of prison, and specifically target the handful of individuals in communities that are committing the most serious acts of violence. And so all of our interventions follow this framework. And the most important thing for our talk today, all 6 minutes remaining, is that the most serious crime is driven by a small number of offenders. There's a huge body of evidence that shows that very serious crime is being committed by a very small number of people in our communities. They are driving the serious, most lethal violence. You can't address them the same way you address everyone else. This is not a one-size-fits-all way of fixing things. And as we talk today, some linguistic housekeeping. Most of us are familiar with domestic violence. I imagine everyone's seen a Lifetime movie, right? Like, we're talking about intimate partner violence, and the reason why that's different is domestic violence is a catch-all category for family violence and for violence in a relationship. We're talking specifically about intimate partners, current or former, and any type of violence or criminal offense that can occur in that context. Our intervention is called IPVI because we like acronyms and we like to make it hard. So I think almost everyone here knows why this is a problem. Everyone here has probably met someone who has experienced some sort of relationship abuse. This is, unlike what John said, right, sexy. Like, I think of Beyonce Got Milk ad as kind of sexy, but people think intimate partner violence is an issue that gets attention. And it does. But what doesn't get attention is what actually is intimate partner violence. Who is committing these acts of violence? What are these acts? How can we actually approach it in a smart, thoughtful, targeted way? So, a stat that's not really going to surprise anyone. And when we dig into most of the stats around intimate partner violence, they bleed into the category of domestic violence. They bleed into other categories. So we don't really know what we're talking about when we talk about it. We're just going to skip it. So our intervention is designed to focus on every type of offender known to the criminal justice system, whether you are the most serious or you are a very low-level offender. And the idea is that you have to tailor it. In order to tailor it, you have to understand it. In order to understand it, you need data. The fact is we don't have good data. Law enforcement doesn't have good data.
So a real quick story. We're working with cities right now to build out IPVI, and one of the police departments sent me their data on homicides, and this is an intimate partner violence intervention, so I was like, maybe I'll be able to see if these homicides might be IPV. I couldn't, so I just Googled it. That's the state of play when it comes to understanding and unpacking intimate partner violence, because intimate partner violence is a cross-cutting crime, right? It's not just a homicide. It could be any type of crime, because the key is intimate partner violence hinges on the relationship between an offender and the victim. And if we can't quantify or establish that, we don't know the real scope of offending and the depths that IPV pervades our communities. And Rachel, we had this slide just to basically say that DV is a priority for law enforcement. They always talk about it, and I'm using DV in air quotes. I promised myself I wouldn't say DV, so oh my gosh, I just lost time. Skipping ahead, what does the data look like? So it's messy, it's missing, but I believe that there is some rich opportunities, especially from data science and data science community, to help us, because the relationships are almost always captured in narratives. we have so much narratives about all of these incidents, whether it's a 911 call, a police report, et cetera, et cetera. So we believe that's a rich place to start. But I can't go line by line. This is just for visual learners, also something that you should know, and for those who work with crime data, you'll know that none of these data sets talk to each other. The prosecution data literally will not talk to any of the police data. So maybe we establish a relationship in the 911 call, but if we're trying to understand arrests that are IPV, I have no idea. So that's where we kind of leave it to you, and we'll hopefully workshop later, is how can data science better identify incidents of IPV? And so hopefully maybe some text analysis, machine learning, building upon searching social media, kind of what I did, I searched news articles about homicides, and sure enough in there are indications of, hey, this person might be in a relationship with this person based on these interviews. We also have lots of PDFs, which are the bane of my existence. And we'll end by this little scary slide that we're not interested in predictive policing. We're not interested in predicting the next IPV crime. We are interested in being able to unpack and unlock this epically black box that is intimate partner violence.
I saw Jessica Ridgway in the audience. There she is. So Dr. Ridgway is at the University of Chicago, and she's going to talk about some
So I'm Jessica Ridgway. I am an infectious disease physician at the University of Chicago, and a lot of my work in care of patients focuses on patients with HIV. So what I was going to talk today about was how we could potentially use data science really to help end the HIV epidemic in the United States and eventually worldwide. All right, great. So there's a lot of places where data science, I think, could really make an impact on the HIV, related to prevention of HIV and in treatment. But what I really want to focus on today is one specific aspect of HIV care, and that's retention and care. So by that we mean people who are diagnosed with HIV receiving regular medical care. It seems sort of like a no-brainer, right? But actually in the US, less than half of people who have HIV are getting regular medical care. And this is actually really, really important for a few reasons. So obviously, getting regular medical care is crucial for the individual's health, right? People with HIV who are in medical care and getting antiretroviral therapy, they can live long, healthy lives. They have way decreased mortality, whereas individuals who aren't in care can progress to AIDS and die from their illness. But it's also really important for another reason, and that's public health. So individuals who are receiving HIV medications are actually not contagious. And so they cannot transmit the virus to anybody else. And so that's one of the really key ways that we could potentially end HIV, is if everybody with HIV is on medical care. The vast majority of HIV transmission events are people who know they have HIV, they're diagnosed, but they're not in medical care. And so if we can make an impact here, we can make a huge difference. So what can we do to improve care? So there's actually, people have tried a few things. Most of what we do is reactionary after patients are already out of care. We try to, they came to care, they got diagnosed, maybe they started treatment, but then they never come back. And so we're calling them, trying to track them down, and it's really not very successful. The other thing that we know works are these preventive interventions, but they're super resource intensive. So it's case managers, frequent phone calls, peer counselors, and we just don't have the resources to do that for everybody with HIV. And so the potential solution in this case is using predictive analytics to identify these people with HIV who are at risk for falling out of care before they disengage from care. And if we could do that, we could really focus our resources on the highest risk group and keep them in care and make a huge difference in the epidemic. So what are the data sources that we have? Well, One is the electronic medical record, which if any of you have worked with electronic medical records before, you know they're kind of a mess. But basically it gathers all the information that the doctors put into the medical record. It's got billing codes, it's got labs, it's got vital signs, lots and lots of information. The other data source is geospatial data, so looking at patients' addresses and how far is it for them to get to clinic, what are the closest public transportation routes, that sort of thing. And then data from the Chicago Open Data Portal we're also looking at, which those of you from Chicago probably know about, is this massive sort of trove of data, publicly available data with information about walkability of neighborhoods, potholes, crime rates and that sort of thing. What we're doing actually in collaboration with Joe in the Center for Data Science and Public Policy is trying to use some of these data sources to look at our patients at the University of Chicago who are potentially out of care. And University of Chicago, we're the largest HIV provider on the south side of Chicago, which is one of the big epidemics of HIV in the US. So we've really run into some challenges that we'd love your guys' help with. So the electronic medical record, as I mentioned, is really messy, really incomplete. We haven't even been able to really even define the right cohort of HIV positive patients, believe it or not. Because there's multiple different places you can document HIV in the record. There's different lab tests. Some physicians have coded patients as HIV who don't actually have HIV. There's very little standardization in provider documentation. There's often changes in test codes and billing codes. We were looking at the data and it looked like, we were trying to look at substance abuse and urine toxicology tests for drug use, and it looked like nobody had tested positive after 2010, and it turns out the lab just changed the test. So that's just one example, but it's all over rampant in the medical record. And then we also have data that's not stored longitudinally, like insurance status just gets replaced with the most recent one, and we don't have that history. So some solutions, we're looking throughout the whole medical record, for example, to look for substance abuse, we're looking at their lab tests, their diagnoses, their medications, as well as looking at NLP of the actual notes. So, for example, we can look at these complex social factors that have to do with retention. By using NLP, we can really get at some of more of these complex factors. Like this is one note actually from one of my patients that I just found that talks about the patient missing appointments. She can't get there because of transportation issues. She can't use Medicaid transportation because it doesn't have a car seat for her son. Like all these really complex issues that just aren't captured in discrete fields in the medical record. So we're using NLP for that. And then the other thing that Joe and his team are working on is using an interactive machine learning pipeline. So supplementing a predictive model based on the electronic medical record and all these data sources with feedback from social workers and clinicians through an interactive web interface. So I think, with these tools and with data science, we can look at all the data we have and really make a huge impact on HIV and potentially end the epidemic in the US. So, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Cragin. I'm the Executive Director of the Midwest Big Data Hub. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to talk about something just slightly different. We're the regional Big Data Innovation Hubs were launched in 2015 with startup funds from the National Science Foundation. And instead of talking about a specific problem and scoping around data and data science, I'll talk about some of the mechanisms that the Big Data Hubs are using to bring groups together from across sectors to help drive solutions to some of the problems that we've already seen brought up today. So there are 4 regional hubs. We're based here clearly in the Midwest. My office is down in Champaign, but there are 4 other regions, and we'll get to those in a minute. There are actually representatives here from both the Northeast Hub and the West Hub as well. I don't know if anybody's here representing the South Hub today. So what do? We're all charged with building public-private partnerships across these various sectors, including the civic sector and data science organizations, to address both scientific but also societal brain challenges. We want to spur economic development, most certainly, especially in a changing economy in this country, and foster the big data innovation ecosystem. In the Midwest specifically, we're trying to bring together data resources and cyber infrastructure to help provide the context landscape and resources needed for cross-community interactions around these problems. And we do that by accelerating some of those collaborations, specific matchmaking. We build new big projects, bringing the right people to the table to work on those things and make sure there's the data sets and computing available to do that work. Here's some of the spaces we're engaged in, specifically in the Midwest, but they vary across the country, and there's certainly overlap across the big data hubs. I'll talk about a couple of these in specific. So one of the things we're engaged in right now is a national transportation data challenge. It's being led of the West Big Data Hub, but all the big data hubs in the country are engaged with this. Here are the current activities we're having. In the Midwest, we've actually got a hackathon happening this coming Sunday, focused specifically on bike and pedestrian safety, and then weather and emergency response. So we've mobilized quite a number of data sets across the hubs. We've got engagement from a number of universities and companies, datascience.com and Google being two of those, and they've come to the table to help us launch these events. Here's some other activities happening, and it's just under bigdatahubs.io if you're looking for that. I'm sorry I didn't include that website. So that's one big space we're engaged in right this minute, but we have others. So we're launching an activity, an initiative in the Midwest Hub this fall on data-enabled local rural communities. This is akin to the Smart and Connected Communities. You might have heard this program from NSF and other agencies. We're doing that because in the Midwest we have quite a range of rural communities and small municipalities who aren't getting access to the kinds of data science support that the big metro cities have. And so we're looking to bring together people from engineering, data science, domain scientists, national labs, and others to put together a community to address these problems that reach out. So last mile transportation, for example, mobilizing health response, especially for rural communities where there's lots of overlap with problems related to other kinds of resilience, energy, transportation. So, some opportunities to engage, and I'll be here for the morning and happy to talk further about some of this. All of the big data hubs have webinars, calls, workshops. Thank you. And we have newsletters, but we also put a lot of work into building partnerships, building connectivity across groups that don't normally work together or don't have access. So the projects that we're all talking about here in space today, there are a lot of academics and other groups that don't have access to this group and would love to hear about these projects happening. So I'll bring those back to our communities. So do feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to have you on board. The space in the Midwest where we're working on now, we've got a lot of work happening in water quality, food security. So I'd love to talk to folks that are working in this space here. Community resilience and applications of Internet of Things, sensors, and unmanned systems across all of these spaces. Here are my counterparts at the other hubs. Do feel free to reach out to them if you're from a different part of the country. And thank you very much.
I think we can take one or two questions. Does anyone have a question?
I think one thing I want to mention is, so, sorry, jump in. Some of these talks people gave, they also have write-ups that they submitted, and the one that Kyle and Rachel did is amazing. It really describes the intimate partner violence problem really well, and sets up here are the opportunities for data science people to help. So I encourage you guys to go and really read that, because it's a really good example of how to describe your problem in a way that you can have people come in and help. So I really think you should look at that, but also we're going to have some of these teams will be around here for lunch, so we'll have lunch tables for that, and then as Joe mentioned, there'll be a scoping workshop in the afternoon. One of them, I think, will be with you guys. So there'll be lots of opportunities to talk more to all the people And yeah, so I think we're gonna probably just break up for coffee. We're a little late, so we're gonna start the next session in about 15 minutes. And the next session will be starting with two things. One is gonna talk, we'll have the Data Science for Social Good Fellowship programs from Portugal, from Seattle, Atlanta, IBM, and Taiwan going in one session, giving lightning talks. And the other one is gonna have, the first session is gonna be on talks from the private sector doing data science for social good, followed by a panel discussion, which is going to basically take over the question that Elena asked this morning on why do you guys do this kind of stuff. So we'll have a panel with people from, one from Accenture, a person from Deloitte, Datascope, and Domino for Good. So split up into those sessions, and then we'll come back in about probably 15 minutes. So get some coffee, wake up, and come back. Being on the